My toxic, spiteful coworker literally tries to get me fired by lying to my company that I was sabotaging our system. But now, after a few years and I got promoted, this lady is now working for me, giving me a golden opportunity to exact my revenge in the best way possible. Here's what happened. Several years ago, I worked with the most spiteful, troublemaking woman who we will call Mary for the sake of the story. She and I applied for the same promotion and she got it. Now, I was okay with not getting the job because it really wasn't part of my career path. I just wanted the extra money. Now, she was not in my chain of command, but she seemed to think that her promotion gave her the right to treat me badly. She would make snide comments about me to my coworkers, who thankfully knew what she was all about and would stand up for me. She would try to assign work to me, and when I would refuse, she'd run to our mutual boss and complain until she got her way, and then I would have to take on extra work as a result. I had suspected for a while that she was telling our boss lies about me, but I had no proof, so I just kept my mouth shut. Eventually, though, I was promoted to another department. In the days before I went to my new job, it was apparent that someone was sabotaging my work. Stuff like data being changed on files that I was working on. Now, of course, I suspected Mary, but again, I had no proof. It all came to a head when she announced to the entire office that I was actually the one who was sabotaging the computer system. Of course, nobody believed her, but it was still very upsetting for me. It got so bad that I made arrangements to go to my new job earlier than originally planned. For the next several years, Mary and I would have to work together on projects. I spoke to her as little as possible, and covering all my bases was my motto. And while it was awkward, it was also manageable. During that time, I received several promotions, and I ended up as the director of my department. There are about 50 people in my department, and I mainly have contact with only the supervisors. And I guess I'm known as the one to give problem employees to, where I either get them to shape up or ship out, but I was very surprised when human resources approached me about taking on Mary because she was about to be fired in her current job. Now, my initial reaction was to scream, absolutely not. I really felt I couldn't be impartial and give her a fair chance. But I was pretty much not given a choice. What's worse is I couldn't pawn her off to one of my supervisors. Because of the work that she did, she would have to report to me specifically. So, after resigning myself to having to take her on, I started dreaming of how I would exact my revenge. There were so many possibilities, I was almost giddy with anticipation. But the sweetest revenge was on her first day in the office. I called her into my office to give her my come to Jesus message, and she came in with the most scared look on her face. I mean, I thought she was going to puke. I decided to have pity on her, and I started out softly. I asked her if she understood how she ended up here. She replied meekly by saying, I guess it's karma. Now, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I knew exactly what she meant, but I wanted to hear her say it. So I asked her, what do you mean? She then proceeded to apologize for everything she'd done to me, including spreading lies and doing the sabotaging herself. I was about ready to admit defeat in the revenge game, but then I thought of the very best next step. I told her ever so calmly, you know that you could be fired for that, right? I let that sink in until I saw the beads of sweat on her forehead. Then I said to her, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, you are going to decide your fate at this company. You will not be able to blame me for what happens to you because it will be up to you to succeed or fail. And honestly, it felt so much better than using my power over her to get my revenge. She's still working for me, but I don't think she will last much longer. Not because she's going to be fired. She really has improved a great deal, but because being nice to me is just so hard for her. I don't think she can stand it, and she will probably find another job. And hopefully that job is at another company. Oh man, I love situations like this, where a toxic coworker who treated you like garbage and spread lies about you suddenly flips places with you, and they now find themselves at your mercy. Like, that is so satisfying, it honestly is amazing. And I also love the fact that you went about this in a really kind way, where it is literally impossible for her to say anything negative about you. So seriously, good for you for not only working your way up the chain, but also ensuring that she knows that you're the boss and that the only way out is for her to get another job, because that is just a small taste of the way that she made you feel. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I just realized that I was severely bullied at my first fast food job, as my coworkers literally treated me like garbage the second they realized that I was related to the owner. Here's what happened. For the longest time, I thought I was just too weak to handle that kind of work and have been blaming myself in general, but once I got a better grasp of the restaurant industry, that thought of mine started to feel off. You see, my aunt owned the restaurant, and she offered me a job there because I wanted to get some experience and because I knew that I would be able to adapt fast. So, no special treatment was present. I sent in my resume and I got the interview. I even perfected the pre-employee examination and followed all the steps. So I got to my first day and things were good. I quickly got the hang of stuff, and by the end of my first week, I was doing golden. I memorized all the work lingo and codes, and the work itself was super easy. Then came the banger. Everyone somehow read my resume and found out about my educational history and my aunt. From then on, my coworkers started acting weird around me, especially the managers. Now, they never really said anything about my familial relationship with the owner, but really, it felt like that. They put me through all kinds of work, which is definitely normal in that line of work as the service crew, but even then, some seniors of mine who actually had decent personalities scolded my coworkers for obviously giving me all the hard work, and that's how I knew I was being mistreated. They all threw the dirty, unwanted work on me, and I never complained. And actually, I really didn't care because I like being busy. It meant that I didn't have to deal with them. A lot of my coworkers are nice though. It's the managers that are the real evil. They obviously got off on degrading me, and the buff male manager is the first on that list. He literally went on a full rant on how incompetent I was for stapling the wrong receipt, and when he made mistakes when helping out at the counter, he blamed it on me in front of the customer. There is one decent manager who actually helped me and was super nice in general, and even to this day, I think of them and I'm super grateful. But the absolute worst is the big eye lady manager. Every time she was on shift with me, my energy gets significantly depleted. She has that bad aura around her. She would nitpick on the stuff I did and once again blame me for the stuff that I didn't do. There was one time where an order was foregone because someone put the receipt in the wrong place. So she instantly went to me and asked if I did it. Now I said no because I definitely didn't, but then she still yelled at me in front of not just my coworkers but also the customers. I was so ashamed of something I didn't even do. Even then, I continued on with my job. I started shaking and my vision blurred from all the pressure, and that was intensified from the yelling I got. At that time, I just thought this must be how they train us. Then as I worked, she got back to me and told me to come with her. She then went on a full rant about how I was slow and so robotic, that I can't do the job right, and that I'm too sensitive, and that after 2 weeks, I should have been fast and professional. I honestly couldn't take it. I started crying and she just didn't even care. She told me to go upstairs and fix my face. Upstairs, I cried so much and I began to hyperventilate. It took me about an hour to recover, and of all the people who came upstairs, no one knew, or maybe they just didn't care to ask. When I got back down, she wasn't done. She told me that my crying isn't gonna get me paid, and then she went off. She liked this routine almost every shift. She would nitpick everything I did, and then laugh and talk with my other coworkers. Every time I ask her a question, or even when I let her sign my time card, she acts as if it's such a difficult job. One slow day where there are literally no customers and all the other jobs had been done, she scolded me for standing around and doing nothing, when in all actuality, I was just done with my restocking. The last time and straw for me before I quit was when she took me to the office, where she played a Taylor Swift song and didn't even bother to turn it off. And it was then that she started degrading me again, about why I'm so unenthusiastic with her, and questioning why I'm so robotic with the customers. She even used my educational attainments to attack me. Aren't you a really smart valedictorian graduate? Why can't you do this or that? And that became a running thing with everybody. They always used my graduation against me. The work never took a toll on me. They did. Every time I had to work, I cried, because I knew that in some way or another, I was about to get degraded and shamed. And it particularly hurt because those same managers were so playful and friendly with the other coworkers, even when they mess up and mess around. But with me, who kept quiet and just did my job, somehow I got that treatment. But they all said the same thing. It was just part of training so that I would get stronger. But I mean, come on, it ruined me and my self-image. Now, I never told any of that to my aunt, even until now. I just told her that I had to leave because I'm busy, and that was the end of it. For the longest time, I believed that how I was treated there was normal, and that it's all some sort of initiation ritual to degrade and overwork us like that. But now, I'm not so sure if that was the right way to treat me. No, that's definitely not okay, and honestly, I'm so sorry they did that to you. That is so toxic. These people were so mean to you for no reason. And you know for a fact they only did that because you were like related to the owner, and that for some reason set their hair on fire. Especially that dumb lady who would berate you. Like, that is so uncalled for. You did not deserve that at all. So honestly, I'm so glad you don't work there, but I really hope this is a lesson that next time something like this happens, you speak up and say something to the owner, because the way you got treated is absolutely unacceptable. A pair of entitled customers come into my restaurant 20 minutes before closing, but then when they finally get their food, they quite literally choose to complain about everything in front of them, as all of their options are never good enough, causing me and the rest of the staff way more stress than we ever deserve. Here's what happened. Okay, so it was a pretty slow night, and no one else was booked to come in an hour before closing, so the kitchen started closing up and cleaning everything. But then a a table of 2 comes in 20 minutes before closing, so I went in and told them while they were in the middle of cleaning everything. So they started back up and took the table's order, and they only wanted 1 dinner between them, but they wanted everything in separate bowls for some weird reason. When I was taking their order, they kept telling me they wanted it really hot, and she said it like 3 times. So I went and told the chef as a joke, because obviously their dinners are gonna be hot. I mean, that's just how it works here. And you know what? That was fine. It was taken out to them, and about 5 minutes later, it gets sent back for not being hot enough. Now, the chefs were kind of confused, but they redid the entire thing and made it really hot and sent it right back out. Then the woman said to me, "Can we get some cranberry sauce for both of us to share? And we want a lot of it." So I filled up a salt bowl with it, and I took it out, and she said to me, "Oh, maybe this would be enough for 1 dinner, but this isn't enough for 2 people." So I went back and I filled up a huge bowl with it, and I took it out, and she started laughing at me. She said to me, "Oh, you brought another one." And I just kind of stared at her straight-faced, because yes, obviously I brought her another one because she asked for it. Then they asked for a boat of gravy, so they got that, and then they asked for another boat of gravy, so they got that as well. And wouldn't you believe it, they asked for a 3rd boat of gravy, and at this point, my coworker gave them a huge boat of it. After I went to get their plates, they had used all the gravy, but they hadn't even finished the first thing of sauce I gave them, and they hadn't even touched the 2nd bowl. So they just wasted a ton of it for no reason. So seriously, screw people who act like this, because this really ruined my night and made things a lot harder than it needed to be. Wow, these people were clearly coming in probably like at the end of like a bar hopping session, and they were either drunk or they really were this stupid to treat you and the rest of the staff like this. Listen, if you want to come in late to a restaurant, you better be on your best behavior. You're gonna order something that's easy to make, and you're not gonna be a hassle for anybody in the back. And you would think that's just common courtesy, but obviously people like this prove otherwise. So yeah, if I worked in that situation, I would be super annoyed as well, because the way these people acted was absolutely obnoxious. My 15-year-old sister is a straight-up thief, as she is constantly stealing my belongings, and as a result, getting me in trouble with my parents, as my parents always assume that I'm just not sharing, instead of my sister straight up robbing me. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated that I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this has been happening for years. At first, I thought I was losing my stuff, but one day I found some books I thought were gone in her room, and that's when I realized my younger sister is the one taking my things without permission. In that incident with the books, I confronted her and I told her they were mine, and I demanded that she return them. Well, she refused, we struggled, and she ended up hitting me and making my lip bleed. And guess who my parents blamed? They blamed me for not sharing. But it's like, how am I supposed to share something if I was never even asked for it and she just took it? This happens every time I catch her taking something of mine. I'm always the one at fault for not knowing how to share, and this makes me feel completely unprotected in my own home. Not only do they fail to respect my belongings, but it also seems like my parents justify her behavior. The last time I realized she had stolen something from me, namely my markers, I didn't say anything to anybody. I just took them back, bought a combination lock for my backpack, and now I keep all of my valuable belongings secured. I mean, if my parents won't do anything about their daughter being a thief, then I have to protect my stuff from her myself. I'm so tired of this situation, and my parents don't seem to realize how serious this problem is. So how can I make them understand that my sister needs to face consequences for her actions? This isn't just about me. If they keep enabling this behavior, eventually I won't be the only one affected. Sooner or later, it could impact them or even people outside of our family. If this is how she behaves at 15 years old, I can't imagine how much worse it will get when she's older. What should I do? Oh man, this is so toxic and annoying, it's honestly so frustrating. Here you are getting your belongings back from your sister, and your parents are trying to say, "Oh, you just need to learn how to share. This is your fault for not sharing your belongings." And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? This is my property and she is literally taking it from my room. This is not about sharing. Like, that is not a part of this conversation. I'm sure you would probably be willing to like share anything if she really wanted it, but this is straight up thievery. So I think your approach is really smart, and I love the fact that you're locking things up and you're trying to protect your belongings, because obviously that's what you need to do. But also, if I was in your shoes, I would keep a complete list of everything that idiot's stolen, even stuff that she took and you've never gotten back. Make a list and check it twice, and be sure to show it to your parents. The dream scenario here is that you somehow catch her on camera stealing your stuff, and then you can blast that to your parents and be like, "Look, I told you she's stealing from me." So hopefully this gets better sooner than later, because the way your parents are enabling this behavior, in my opinion, is absolutely uncalled for. My entitled brother pulls out of a Christmas lunch that we were planning, claiming that he had really bad heartburn, but in reality, he was just severely hungover. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live with my parents and my grandparents. My mom is a full-time carer for my grandparents grandparents who both have dementia. One of my stepbrothers lives across town with his girlfriend, and my entitled brother and his girlfriend live in Sydney. They came up for the Christmas holidays, but instead of spending their Christmas with us, they always spend it with their aunts, who are significantly wealthier than us, near the beach, but they normally drop in for lunch between Christmas and New Year's for 2 to 3 hours. Both of my stepbrothers and their girlfriends were supposed to drop in today for a barbecue lunch. My parents have gone to a lot of effort to prepare for this, and my parents spent $200 at the butcher getting meat, and my mom has been in the kitchen all morning preparing salads and vegetables. I even went out this morning to grab some last-minute things from the supermarket. Now, about an hour before my entitled brother was supposed to come, he called my parents asking if he could come earlier, and he could only stay for about an hour. He said that he has heartburn all over his body and he needs to see a doctor. Now, I used to be a nurse in a general practice, and most doctors' surgeries close at about 12 o'clock on a Sunday. He also said his girlfriend has a hair appointment that afternoon, and he has had previous issues with heartburn, especially when he drinks. Well, I immediately called BS on his excuse, as I believed that he was just hungover. Well, my parents were furious. They felt like they were being used and felt like they've been disrespected due to all the effort they've put in. My parents told me that he said he's only been drinking water. However, I remember him telling me that alcohol makes his heartburn worse, and from my experience in healthcare, alcohol is known to worsen heartburn. So it made both me and my parents suspicious that he had a massive night last night and was just completely hungover. This isn't the first time that he's done something like this, by the way. When me and my parents went to Tasmania for the weekend, he came and minded our dog. I then woke up on the Saturday morning to a heap of motion notifications on our security cameras, all at random times in the night. I looked through the footage, and it turns out he threw a party with about a dozen people while we were all gone. I saw footage of him and his friends standing on the tables, as well as their illicit substances laid out on the table as well, if you know what I mean. And I was absolutely shocked that someone brought that into my parents' house. Well, I told my parents and they were furious. They called my brother and told him to clear everybody out. And when we got back, they lectured him for about an hour about how disrespectful and dangerous that was. My brother tends to be quite rude and dismissive to my stepfather in general, and many of my family, including myself, are quite appalled at the way they treat my stepdad and how they act in front of him. I like my stepbrothers as people, but I generally keep my distance, and I don't want to hang out with them for this reason, as I vehemently hate the way they treat my parents. I only see them at family events, and while they are nice to me, I really want to give them a lecture about appreciating your parents. I will be definitely keeping my distance from them in the future, because I'm just as pissed off as my parents are. Yeah, your brother sounds like a piece of work, and I honestly just can't stand people who treat their parents like this. Like, it really does seem like he's just using them, and he doesn't care about their timetable or what they're trying to do. He only cares about what he wants, and the only way he would ever show up is if it caters to his needs specifically. So yeah, this guy sucks, and honestly, I don't blame you for being pissed off, because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My husband's extended family allows their kids to wreak havoc across a Christmas party, causing literally over $1,000 in damages, while still being completely ignorant to everything that's going on. Here's what happened. So my husband's brother and sister-in-law were in town for Christmas with their 3 kids, and they have kids that are ages 3, 5, and 6. Well, they caused over $1,000 of damages to some family member's house after warning both the kids and the parents that they were playing too hard with their pool table. The parents didn't take any responsibility at all, but did end up sending the family members money to avoid further conflict. And in the end, they clarified that it wasn't their kids' fault, even though they were the only kids at the function. The kids' behavior was abhorrent the entire trip. They were hitting people, they were throwing toys, saying that they didn't like their presents, and they would even throw food that they didn't want. And most of this was from their eldest, the 6-year-old. The parents got upset that everyone else in the family, namely the 12 other adults there, were talking about the kids' lack of discipline, and basically turned around and said that it's our fault for not being more supportive, and that it's on us to react properly when their kids misbehave, either by talking to them, disciplining them, or physically taking them to their parents. So seriously, this is crazy, right? How are they expecting everyone else to say no and set boundaries when they don't do it themselves? We would love to be the fun aunt and uncle, but we can't because they already get everything, and we're the ones that feel like we have to tell them no because their parents won't. Now, I would love to avoid all of them if I could, but unfortunately, they are family we see about 4 to 5 times a year, so that really isn't an option. And the other adults were setting boundaries, including them playing with the pool table, and it was damaged already. And honestly, between them throwing toys at people and hitting people, this behavior, especially from the 6-year-old, was completely out of line, and I honestly just don't want to deal with them any longer. I personally have a special place in my heart when it comes to telling people that their kids are monsters. seriously, I think we all know the difference between a kid that's just like slightly misbehaving and one that clearly just doesn't care about anything anybody says. Like, there is a massive difference, and it is so frustrating to deal with because it all comes down to the fact that these parents are just failing their kids and they're not disciplining them in the way that they should. They really just have to put their foot down and be like, no, this is the way it's gonna be. But instead, they're literally turning to everybody else and being like, oh, this is your fault. If our kid's not properly behaving, then you need to talk to them and discipline them, or bring them to us and we'll take care of it. But it's like, wait a second, how am I responsible for your spawn? This is not my kid, meaning that it's not my problem. Like, seriously, that is such a stupid take. These are the type of people who will be like, you need to discipline my child, but the second you do, they jump down your throat and they're like, don't talk to my kid like that. And it's like, okay, well, what do you want? Do you want your kid throwing things at everybody at this function? Or do you want to be the parent for once and step up and do something about it? Because as far as I'm concerned, this kind of behavior is absolutely fixable, and it 100% begins and ends with the way the parents treat their child. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.